So we've done a lot of work in terms of melodies. The melody is the part that we sing, and it's usually played at higher pitches. And on the keyboard, the higher pitches are closer to our right hand, so that's why our right hand generally plays the melodies. Once you start playing some other work, sometimes you'll find that melodies go into the left hand, and they'll actually be interspersed between the two hands, depending on what the composer wants. But what we'll find is if we're only playing melodies all the time, like this, it sounds a little bit thin. And when you go to a concert and you listen to an orchestra play, all the different sounds and instruments and the different levels they play at add to the richness of the sound. The beautiful thing about the piano is we have such a wide range of sounds. So not only when you're playing guitar are you limited to maybe this range, now on the piano we have even deeper tones that we can use and even higher ones as well. So just as an exercise, we're going to take Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. We're just going to do it in C major, and we're going to add a left hand to this. And we're going to do this solely by ear. We want to just experiment and see what sounds good. So let me try something here. C major has no black keys in it. So if I play Twinkle Twinkle in C major, I'm going to try adding a left hand to it, but I'm only going to use black keys. Let's see what happens. Okay, maybe I'll start on this one. There's clashing right away. That doesn't sound good. Okay, let me use the next one, which is D sharp. It doesn't sound very good. No. Let's go up to maybe F sharp. It almost sounds like a weird, spooky sound. How about G sharp? It kind of works, but again, it gives this weird, spooky sound. And then lastly, how about A sharp? So what I'm finding is the black keys don't really work with any of the melody. And the secret to that is, and it's not really a secret, but the black keys are not part of the scale. And when we want to harmonize, when we want to add other tones to make a more rich, beautiful sound, we have to follow the tones of a scale. And if you want to look further into this, it actually has its roots in physics. And if you study physics and frequency of sound, then you can dive deep into why these two C's sound good together, and these don't sound good together. Okay, so I'm going to play the melody of Twinkle Twinkle again, and now I'm going to use tones that are part of the C major scale. So since I'm starting on C, maybe if I start on a C here, that will sound good, I know that, but let's see how far it'll sound good for. You know what, this time I'm going to play it every single time I play a different key in the right hand. So it sounds good most of the time, but it's kind of boring just hearing that same tone on the bottom. So maybe here, if I change it up, maybe if I play a D. Well, that's going to sound bad, so I might have to go back to the C. So you know what? That's not too bad. That kind of works. Yeah, there's a little bit of change there, a little variety, but there's still something kind of strange about it. Maybe if I go... Ooh, that doesn't sound very good. And what I notice here is I have an F in the right hand, which is pretty much here, and an E in the left hand. So side by side tones, they tend to clash. So those sounds are fighting each other, and we don't want that. We want harmony. Harmony is where you have nice, smooth sound together. So before we continue, let's try to see which tones actually sound nice together. So if I play a C, C and E sound nice. C and F, kind of an interesting tone. C and G. So the farther apart the tones are, it seems to work. But then there's a point where, because C is really up here, that starts to clash. So the farthest away is C and F, C and G, but I did like C and E as well. So if I were to play a C here, and then I play this A, what's far away from A? Well, C, sort of. D. I'm going to play an F. Is there anything farther away from F? Well, C is also far away. And then I'm going to play a D here. I don't want to play a C because C and D are side by side. What's far away from D? That works as well. So the neat thing about music is there's many different ways that you can harmonize a melody. You can harmonize a melody to give it more of a strange sound like we were doing earlier, or you can do something very traditional. And a little tidbit in terms of musical theory is when we're harmonizing melodies, the common tones that we harmonize with are the first degree of a scale. So in C major, it'll be C, the fourth degree of the scale, and the fifth degree of the scale. So a lot of popular music is just, we call it 1, 4, and 5. So if you ever hear those terms online, how to play 500 songs with just 3 chords or 4 chords, well, 1 is definitely a very popular chord. Now, I'm not playing a chord right now, I'm playing a single tone. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about how to turn that into a chord. But you need a root tone for every chord. And so the root of 1 is, well, the first note of the scale. The root of 4 is the fourth note of the scale. And the root of the fifth chord is the fifth note of the scale. So you can skip playing all of the other tones in that chord and just play that root note. So if I were to play Twinkle Twinkle again and only use those tones, let's see what that sounds like. So I'll start off with C. Now I have an A here. C works, but it's kind of boring. If I use G, G and A are side by side, it clashes too much, so I'm going to use an F. Now I'm going to play a G next. 2 G's go well together, but G and C also goes well together. So let's try that again. I'll use the F this time. And when I play the G, maybe I'll go back down to C. Now I'm going to have an F, so I'll probably play an F as well. I'm going to play a C. C and F don't work together, so I'm going to jump back down to C. Now I have a D. Why don't I try playing a G? And that works as well. That's more of a traditional type of accompaniment. But there are many ways that you can accompany your melodies, and I highly encourage you to experiment with different ways. But the key is you've got to follow in your left hand the scale of the melody in your right hand. Otherwise, there's going to be too much clashing of sound.